Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Vados.
Hello, my name is Katie Hernandez.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Beares, and it's a pleasure to be here in this Zoom meeting one more time. And so today we're going to talk about three very important topics that my classmate Nicole is going to mention next. So Nicole.
Okay, the first one is civil rights. The second one is Cold War, and finally, we are going to talk about Vietnam War. So let's start talking civil rights. Civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s came about out of the need and desire for equality and freedom for African Americans and other people of color. Katie, can you follow?
Uh, yes, of course. Thank you, Nicole. Um, well, nearly 100 after the slavery was abolished, there was discrimination, disenfranchisement, and racially motivated violence that permeated all personal and structural aspects of life for Black people. Can you continue, Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you. And well, I'm talk about landmark and sweeping civil rights legislation. So in 1954, the Supreme Court in Brown Board of Education ruled that school could not longer be segregated, and that state laws establishing separate public school for Black and white students were unconstitutional. So, Nicole, can you help me, please?
Yeah. Also, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination in public places and made employment discrimination illegal based on race, color, religion, sex, and or national origin. Katie, what more can you add?
Well, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. The legislation protected minority voting rights, barring states from passing laws that would discriminate against minority votes and requiring certain state and in local governments with a history of voting discrimination to get approval from the federal government before making any change to their voting laws and procedures. Can you continue, Jonathan? Su micrófono.
I'm truly sorry. Well, I will continue. In 1968, finally, the Civil Rights Act of, again, 1968, commonly known as the Fair Housing Act, provided equal housing opportunities regardless of race and creed or national origin, and made it illegal to interfere with housing rights and opportunities. So that's all.
Nicole?
Yeah. Now let's discuss a little bit more about the Cold War. So the Cold War was a confrontation between the Western Bloc, Western capitalists, led by the United States, and the Eastern Bloc, Eastern communists, led by the Soviet Union. The Cold War began in 1947 and lasted until 1991. Here we have two countries that tried to reign over each other, but never started the Third World War. During these conflicts between capitalists and communists, in the end of peace always reigned. So, Kaylee, could you continue?
Yes, it was a political, economic, social, ideological, and military confrontation. The confrontation began when the Second World War ended. The Soviet Union and the United States were fought together against Nazi Germany during World War II, and they were allies. But it was after the war ended that the United States began a struggle for supremacy.
Well, maybe you are wondering why call it the Cold War. So it was called Cold War because there was not a direct conflict. And this war can be considered a war of strategies, of strategic disputes, and a war of ideological conflict. And well, during the Cold War, the United States and the Union tried to outlaw each other, competing to develop the best technologies and weapons. So an example of that is that the first part of the Cold War was thanks to an arms competition. So with the arm of showing who had better weapons.
Thanks, Jonathan. As previously stated, during this war, in the end, peace won, and that helped bring it to an end. Some agreements were also signed to promote pacifism. The Cold War ended with the crisis of socialism and the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the separation of the Soviet Union. The United States became the only country of power. Under the president of Ronald Reagan, the Cold War ended in 1991.
Well, we are going to talk about the Vietnam War. Is the third topic for today. The Vietnam War was a prolonged military conflict that started as an anti-colonial war against the French and evolved into a Cold War confrontation between international communists and free market democracy.
Well, the Vietnam War began in 1954, and was fought between the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. The North had the support of community allies, and including the Soviet Union and China, while the South had the support of the West with the United States.
Thank you. Okay, the main reason the United States got involved in Vietnam was the purpose of doing everything possible to keep communists from spreading around war. Also, since the beginning of the Cold War, the United States had practiced a policy of containment against the expansion of communism and wanted to prevent the ideology from taking root in different regions of the world. Katie.
In general, historians have identified several different causes of the Vietnam War, including European imperialism in Vietnam. In January 1973, the United States and North Vietnam include a final peace agreement, ending open hostilities between the two nations war between North and South Vietnam continued. However, until April 30, 1975, when DRV forces captured Saigon, remaining in Hainan City. Jonathan.
So, well, the United States troops withdrew. The United States troops withdrew, and that led to victory in North Vietnam in 1975, and the country was reunited in 1976. This war had a huge cost in humans' lives. So, more or less, more than 1.3 million Vietnamese soldiers and about 58,000 troops from United States were killed, and also more than 2 million civilians. So civilians were people who didn't participate in the war. So more than 2 million civilians also died in this war. So that's all, and I think this was a little introduction for these three topics that for me are three topics very interesting, and we need to learn about that. So what do you think, Katie or Nicole? I don't know.
Yes, of course.